Don't come to Tokyo. Hi, welcome to the Black Experience Japan's Melanated Files. The purpose of this series is to highlight the black people living in Japan. Who are they? My name is Jason Gatewood. I was born in St. Louis, Missouri. Kind of grew up all over the United States, New York City, Los Angeles, Atlanta. Most recently, Atlanta is where I would call home. What drew me to Japan was, well, when I was in junior high school, my family made a move to Los Angeles, Inglewood, California. And there's a city to the south of there called Torrance. It was one of those places where there was a lot of Japanese American people living. And I had to go there once a week for a school workshop. And I started getting involved with like other kids my age who just happened to be Japanese, and I picked up a little bit of the culture, and I was like, wow, this is cool, you know. It's like 1990 something, and you know, the big thing with like Pokemon and like anime and stuff really hadn't caught on yet. So I was kind of like, it was very new to me. No one had known about this stuff. So 12-year-old, 13-year-old me was like, wow, these games are better than ours. Wow, these cartoons are better than ours. Wow, these comic books are better than ours. I want to learn this language so I can figure out what's going on. So fast forward to me being in college, and it was the first time I could take Japanese as a language. And I found that for some reason I had a propensity more than Spanish and any other language I tried to just speak it. And then I just made a go at trying to come over here. I was working for a big media company at the time, and they needed somebody to come over here and do production work for them here in the Tokyo office. And so in 2000, I came over here. And I've been over here on and off ever since. Right now, I work as a kind of a project coordinator and a media studies teacher at a big university here in town. And I also work as a freelance journalist for a couple of top worldwide media companies as well. 18 years, but not continuously. I first arrived here in 2000, and then I worked my contract and then I left. And I left for about almost a year, and I came back in 2001 as a student. And I was an exchange student in Osaka for a period of time, and then after that program was up, I graduated from my university in St. Louis, lived in Atlanta for about 3 or 4 years almost, but I was still coming back here because I have many friends here. Almost every year I was coming back and visiting, and then decided in 2008, no, I'm gonna move back to Japan. And I've been here ever since. First and foremost, I like the freedom that Japan allows me. I think I can't really say whether or not that I would experience the same amount of freedom going into another, like if I'd have gone to Korea or if I'd have gone to like Germany or someplace like that, maybe the same thing, because when you get out of the culture that you grew up in and go to a different place, you know, it's a little bit difficult and it's a little bit taxing on the mind, but you also experience a little bit of freedom because you get to erase the slate and kind of build your own future. You're writing on a new board at that point. So when I came here in 2000, that was probably the first thing I noticed. The other thing that I like about Japan is the fact that there's no prejudice in the traditional American sense of the word. Of course, I'm African American, so, and moreover, I'm from the part of America that is kind of used to that, being from the South. But here, if there is a prejudice towards me, it's me as an outsider first. Not necessarily anything that I can control, of course, but it's not the same. It's kind of a weird way of putting it, but
I would rather be, if I'm going to be prejudged by anybody, which is still bad, I'd rather be prejudiced on the fact that I'm totally 100% different from the culture and everybody that lives within it, rather than being a part of something as I am as an American. And the only difference is that I happen to have like a higher melanin content, if that means anything. So again, that's one of the freedoms, though. And then the other fact is, I would say 99.9% of Japanese people don't give me any kind of, prejudiced feelings. They're genuinely curious about, where I come from and what I do and why I can speak Japanese and the same questions that you're asking me. I think that's what I like about it the most. And then, of course, the other thing, too, is I'm always learning here. There's always something to learn. Every day I go someplace and I learn something new. I have students that teach me. I can turn on the news and there's always just something new. My mind is constantly working. There's no chance to be lazy here. So I think from that standpoint, they say that in order to remain young, your mind must constantly be active. And I know from living here over the past 18 years, my mind is always active here. So the thing that I like the least about Japan are some of the things that I kind of took for granted in America, kind of the commonsensical things that as an American, I would feel that, everybody does this, right? For example, it's about to be wintertime here in Japan. And we're in the peak of Samui desu weather, right? Samui desu means, it's cold, isn't it? Japanese houses don't have insulation in them. And so even Tokyo, which gets down to freezing temperatures in the wintertime, you'll still only have walls this thin. And, as an American, anywhere I lived in America, when you enter the house, you can take off your coat, you can take off your jacket, you can get comfortable in your own house. There's central heating. There isn't that sort of thing in most places in Japan. So when I go to sleep at night, for example, I take off my street clothes and I put on a tracksuit. So it looks like I'm just about to go work out. Other things I don't like, the conveniences I kind of miss. In America, I'm used to going to one grocery store for everything. Here, if I want to cook a meal, unless I'm making a very Japanese meal, I have to go to maybe 3 or 4 grocery stores. Although that's kind of changing now because just like everywhere else in the world, we have delivery services now. So that's a little bit better than it was before when I first got here. Finally, I think the big thing that I don't like about Japan kind of leads me back to being African American and just foreign in general here. I don't like being lumped in with other foreigners when, on a macro scale. Case in point, I've been discriminated against in terms of trying to find a place to live 3 times, where my first choice for an apartment that I wanted to live in was turned down simply because I was a foreigner. And when I asked for a reason, in one case, it was because the landlord had a foreign tenant once upon a time, and he said that guy constantly had problems sorting his garbage, recyclables. And so that was the reason why he was refusing me. But I would also say that the whole discrimination part about being a foreigner here in Japan, especially in places like Tokyo and Osaka, and even Nagoya now, all 3 places which I've lived, it's not totally 100% going away, but it's a lot less than it used to be because just like everywhere else, Japan has kind of got this influx of people coming from other countries living here now. So that's a good thing, I think. Being black in Japan, my first experience was, of course, I had just moved to Osaka, and maybe my second or third day in Osaka, I went down to the central part, Namba, at Metakamura, and I'm walking down the street. And I didn't know anybody, and I could barely speak any Japanese at the time. And I look over and see another black man with very long dreadlocks, and he's surrounded by all these Japanese people, and he seems to be the center of attention. And everyone's having a grand old time. It's like an outdoor cafe, and I kind of looked over in his direction. a little bit like, oh wow, there's another black guy. Oh, that's cool. Because this is like 2001, I think, and there weren't even that many black people even in Osaka. And so I was like, oh, okay, another black guy. That's pretty awesome. All right. And he stopped his whole conversation. He stopped everything, stood up, came across the street just to greet me and said, hey man, you know where you from? He asked a little bit about myself. He happened to be from New York City, and he was like, hey man, why don't you come and join us? You know, welcome to Japan. And so ever since then, it's just like I found out like, wow, you know, being black over here, there's a sense of community because we all have the same experience. We have a base set of experiences, especially as African Americans.
Crap.
But even just like
okay, so
African
my comments
diaspora.
aren't popping up. I see the comments on my laptop, but they're not popping up on the PlayStation. I'm going to reset the stream and let's see if we can get this right. Dav. I think is that the VR game where you paint in VR? Look guys, we're less than 15 minutes into the stream. We've only been here for 11 minutes. Yo, click right back on my channel. I'm going to shut it down and start it right back up just to see if we can get these comments to come up on the TV. Like I said, they're popping up on my laptop. They're not coming up on the PlayStation Network. Sometimes if you power the system all the way down and power it back up, it works. So nobody go anywhere. This is going to take literally 2 minutes. We're going to shut down and start right back up, guys. 2 minutes.